Welcome to the Win Win Evangelism Podcast. I'm Tina Waldrom from Evangelism in Australia. I love helping you feel confident and inspired to share Jesus. Whether you're an individual or a pastor looking to help your church engage in evangelism naturally and consistently. Before today's topic of sharing the gospel in secular Australia, I want to invite you to the Share Jesus membership where you and your congregation can receive my ongoing support and training to share Jesus naturally. You can find out more at sharejesus.com.au. Well, welcome to today's episode. Today I want to talk about something that I think a lot of Christians feel but don't always know how to articulate. How do we share the gospel in a secular society like Australia? Let's be honest, for many of us, it doesn't feel easy anymore. It can feel a little bit awkward, misunderstood, even a little bit irrelevant. But what if the reality isn't that Australians are closed to faith? What if we've just misunderstood the moment that we're in? Let's start with the data. The other week I was talking a lot about the data and talking about information from Mark McCrindle and his research, and you can go back and listen to that episode. But according to McCrindle research, Australia is becoming less religious, but not less spiritual. In fact, around 68% of Australians still identify with religion or spirituality, and more than half believe in a higher power. At the same time, the number of people identifying as having no religion is growing rapidly. So what does that tell us? Here's the key insight for me. Australians haven't rejected spirituality, they've redefined it. Faith has shifted from being institutional to personal. It shifted from structured belief to individual exploration. And that changes everything about how we share the gospel. For me, this is where it really gets interesting. You know, the research from NCLS shows that spirituality is strongly connected to well-being, life satisfaction, and a sense of purpose. So even in a secular culture, people are still asking, why am I here? What gives life meaning? What do I hold on to when things fall apart? So the issue isn't that people aren't thinking spiritually, it's that they're not looking to the church for answers. You know, we also need to slow down and really understand something that is crucially important, because if we get this wrong, we'll keep having the wrong conversations. According to McCrindle research again, the move away from Christianity in Australia isn't primarily driven by people carefully examining the claims of Jesus and deciding that they're false. It's often driven by personal experience, perception, and trust. In other words, people aren't always rejecting what Jesus taught. They're reacting to what they've seen or what they've experienced in Christianity. And that can include things like perceived hypocrisy, feeling judged or excluded, negative experiences with church, or simply feeling like Christianity is out of touch with modern life. Now, that doesn't mean that those perceptions are always fair or accurate, but they are real to the person you're talking to, and that changes how we engage. You know, if someone's barrier is emotional or relational, it changes how we engage. Giving them more information isn't going to solve it. It means before we explain anything, we need to rebuild trust. There's a helpful moment in Scripture where this plays out pretty well for me. In 1 Thessalonians 2:8, it says, "We loved you so much that we delighted to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our lives as well." The Apostle Paul shows us that the message and the relationship go together. The gospel isn't just something we present, it's something we embody. New Testament scholar N.T. Wright, one of my favourites, often emphasises that the early church grew not just through the proclamation of the gospel, but through a community that looked different, a lived out alternative, so to speak. So in a skeptical Australian culture, our first role isn't to convince, but it is to listen. It is to acknowledge, and it is to demonstrate something different. Sometimes the most powerful response isn't, "Let me explain why you're wrong," but "Yeah, I can understand why you'd feel that way." Because when trust is rebuilt, people become open again. Just a quick break. A lot of evangelism training is confrontational, makes people feel awkward. We've worked hard to make all of our training the opposite of that, making evangelism something that everyone can be a part of. If you or your church are looking for that type of training, go to evangelisminaustralia.com and look at our training tab for some great options. Now let's get back to it. Here's something that might surprise you. Research from McCrindle shows that over half of Australians are open to changing their beliefs. Think about that. In a so-called secular society, people are still open, and this is important. They're not open to pressure. They're not open to being told what to think, but they are open to conversations. They are open to authenticity, and they are open to meaning. So the opportunity isn't gone, it's just different. And honestly, this shouldn't surprise us because it's exactly how Jesus engaged people. In Matthew 4:19, we see Jesus saying, "Come, follow me, and I will send you out to fish for people." Or, "Come and follow me, I'll make you fishers of men." You may have heard that. Fishing requires understanding the environment. You don't just throw bait anywhere. You adapt. And Jesus constantly met people where they were. Take the woman at the well in John 4. He doesn't start with doctrine or religious law. He starts with her life, her story, and her thirst. And then he connects that to deeper truth. There's another powerful verse that I love. "I have become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some." 1 Corinthians 9:22. The Apostle Paul isn't changing the message, is he? He's adapting the approach. Theologian John Stott put it this way: "We must not sacrifice truth, but we must communicate it in a way that people can understand." And that's exactly the tension that we're navigating today. So practically, where do we start? Well, not with church and not with doctrine, but with what people already care about. And in Australia today, that's mental health, its purpose, its relationships, and its justice. So instead of saying, "Do you believe in God?" you might ask, "What do you think gives life meaning?" Or what helps you get through the tough times? Or do you think there's something more to life? Because that's where people are already thinking. And this is where I think we need a mindset shift. Evangelism today isn't about making people more religious. It's about helping spiritually open people discover Jesus. And that's exactly why we're doing what we're doing with evangelism in Australia. We're equipping everyday believers with language, with confidence and practical tools to navigate basically this culture, not the one from 20 years ago. So if you've ever felt like, I don't know how to share my faith anymore, you're not alone. But here's the truth. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to be willing to listen, you need to be willing to ask good questions, and you need to be willing to point people to Jesus in a way that makes sense where they are at. Because Australians aren't closed, they're actually searching, just not always in the places that we expect. So thanks so much for listening again this week, and if it's been helpful, and you think differently about sharing your faith, I'd encourage you to explore some of the training and resources that we're developing through Evangelism in Australia. And maybe this week, just start one conversation, not to win an argument, but to understand someone's story. You know, the gospel hasn't lost its power. We just need to learn how to share it in today's world. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.